This singer, songwriter, and artist comes to us from LA and in 1977 was part of one of the biggest bands of our time, Journey. He co-wrote their first charting hit, Wheel in the Sky, as well as Anytime and Winds of March, and they were all on the band's fourth triple platinum album, Infinity. He then went on to record his solo album, Perfect Stranger, in '79 with Neil Schon, then took another gig that involved being the lead singer of the Vinnie Vincent Invasion, and today is working with his band, The Sky, as well as being a renowned artist. So today, here we are with the original lead singer of Journey, Robert Fleischman. Thank you so much. I can't believe I'm finally talking to you.
Oh, thank you, Kiki. I love your energy.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have terrific energy. When I see your little shorts that you do on there, it's really nice.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Now, Robert, when you hear someone like me saying, you know, the original lead singer of Journey, you've heard that for decades, but is there ever a time when you reflect on those words and say, wow, that's me?
Never.
Oh, come on.
No, I really don't. I just, it's kind of something that happened a long time ago. And the funny thing about it is, when that was all happening, there was no real internet going on. People didn't have, telephones with cameras on them. It was all pretty much, under the rug. Unless you saw me play, then it's like, that was about it. There was no videos and all that and the internet to, expand one's career. But when the internet came, I started getting some recognition and all that. So I appreciate it immensely. I mean, I love it. I mean, it's nice. It's nice to have people come up to me and tell me their story about, when they heard this song or what was going on in their lives. And, because music for everybody, even myself, they're just time capsules.
Now, Robert, you've called yourself a mod, and I'm guessing that is due to your passion for the Beatles and the Stones. And I loved the Beatles collages that you shared with all of us in August.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, those were just awesome. Now, what is it about the Beatles that still move you today?
The songwriting, and it was part of my youth. And I had a cousin who was 8 years older than I, and he was into the whole British movement. And I kind of got all sucked into that. And he actually took me to see the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl when I was, 11, I think.
Wow.
And he took me to see the Stones when first time they came to Los Angeles. And so I got the bug early. And Christmas would come along, and I'd get my Beatle albums and my Stones and Kinks and all that. And so I just was sort of marinated in it.
So is that what actually gave you your passion to say, hey, I want to be in music because of these guys? Kind
of. I had a girlfriend who had a classical guitar tucked under her bed, and I used to, when I go over there, I used to pluck around on that, and eventually she goes, oh, just, take it home. So I took it home, and I had a book of chords, and I just kind of started that way. But the thing with me is I never really learned how to play anybody's songs.
Really?
Yeah, I just started making up songs right at the get-go.
Wow. Because usually that's what I always hear is that, people will perform other people's songs to teach themselves how to play.
No, even today, you go, hey, go play this song. I couldn't play it.
Wow.
Even if I go, can you play one of your songs that you have on one of your albums? I just have to go relearn it.
Wow.
Because it's almost like sort of like automatic writing.
Yeah.
And then it's done. And then it's sort of like an Etch-a-Sketch. It just kind of goes, you turn it upside down and shake it, and it's gone. And then I'm waiting for the next muse.
So how did that work when you eventually started doing gigs and getting really into the music business?
How did it work for me?
Yeah, because, if you weren't really covering other people's songs and you were playing your own original music.
Well, I usually was the lead singer.
Okay.
So I didn't have to carry a guitar and amp and all that stuff around. So for a long time, I kind of depended on the guitarist that I was working with. And they would play, music, and I would sort of like improvise over it. And then it got to the point where they're not going exactly where I want to see the song go. And then I started being more self-contained and played guitar and piano. And luckily, I always had a tape recorder with me. So that's how I did everything. I would just play the music, and then I would listen to the recording, and then I would sing over it. And then I would put it together that way.
So did you drive your family crazy? Because you were the lead singer, you were the star. So is this what you did at home too? And they said, "Oh my gosh, just go do what you got to do."
No. I when my parents were gone, that's when I turned up the stereo and I would turn on a tape recorder, and I'd turn on the stereo, and I'd put a Beatles album on or whatever, and then I would sing along with it and record it at the same time, and then I would go listen to it and see if I blended in or see if how I sounded on that Stone song or whatever song, and I would record myself. So at the age of like 13 and on, I always heard myself on tape.
Wow.
Where a lot of people, when they go in the recording studio for the first time, they're probably like 19 years old or 20, and they go in the studio and they play the playback and they go, "Wow, is that what I sound like?" So it's almost like when you make a message on your phone and you go listen to it and go, "Wow, is that what I sound like?"
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. So I went through that early.
So do you remember your first gig, and how did you get it, and where was it?
My first gig I did was at the Teenage Fair at the Palladium in Hollywood.
Wow.
For the Fender guitars and for Fender equipment.
Nice. Well, that was a pretty good first gig.
Yeah, it was my first gig.
So did Fender hire you?
The Teenage Fair, somebody I think the drummer in our band, had some sort of connection or something like that. So that's how we got in.
Very cool. And you obviously continued to play, and then you were in the band Stagger Wing in LA. And I believe then you went off to another band. And then in 77, you had the audition that kind of, kicked it off, I think. So what led you to get that audition for Journey?
I had a manager who had a lot of ties with people from Chicago, and he played a demo for a guy named Frank Rand, who later became an A&R guy for Epic Records and Columbia Records, and then later on he is part of the management of Doc McGee in Nashville now.
Oh, wow.
And he had a booking agency along with this other gentleman, and he had these 5 bands that needed a lead singer. So he called me up from Chicago, and I got a flight to Chicago, and he took me out, and I saw the bands, and I picked the band that I wanted to be with, which was a band that happened to play Pink Floyd and Queen and all that stuff, and they sounded really good, and especially when they did Pink Floyd, they had all the atmosphere and all that. So that's what really attracted me, that they were aware of making atmospheric music. So I toured with them, and we played Chicago, opening up for Cheap Trick.
Nice.
And we played all over the place, all kinds of bands that were popular in the Chicago area. So I did that for about maybe about a year or so, and then I got a call from Barry Fay, who was one of the top promoters in the United States, along with Bill Graham at that time in the 70s.
Big promoter.
And And so he kind of called me up and gave me the, hey, would you like to hit the big time, you know? So I gave a notice to the band I was with, 2 weeks, and then I went to Denver, Colorado, and I met with Barry Fay, and we hung out for a couple of days, and then I was asked if I'd be interested in doing a showcase for CBS Records. And so I had 2 weeks to put together a whole band and write 7 songs.
2 weeks.
And I did it. And the showcase was on a very snowy night, and we weren't sure if everybody was going to be there, and the lights were a little bit delayed. But everybody made it, thank God.
Yeah.
And I performed, and then 2 days later, I was given a ticket to go back home to L.A. and to meet with the CBS presidents and A&R people. And they proposed a band called Journey to me, and wanted to know if I'd be interested in going to San Francisco and, playing with them.
So you go to San Francisco, and at that time it was Greg Raleigh, Ainsley Dunbar, Neil Schon, and Ross Valerie, correct?
Right.
So then you guys meet. Did you automatically hit it off with each other, or did it take some time?
No, we hit it off right automatically. We kind of hung out and talked, and then had some lunch, and then after lunch we got up on stage and started improvising, and we probably jammed for about an hour. And
it was all good. It felt good.
Yeah, it felt great. It felt like I said before, like putting rockets in the back of your pockets.
Ow. But so now at that time, though, Journey was known as a jazz fusion band.
Yeah, it was a rock jazz fusion band, which played 15-minute, 13-minute songs.
Wow. And you were brought in to, give them that different sound. Boston, Foreigner, those were the bands at the time.
And that's what was going on at the time, and that's what CBS was looking to use that formula.
So how did you inject that sound and get them to really change and mold themselves differently?
It was kind of, it was hard because it was like me coming to your home and rearranging your furniture.
That would drive me crazy.
I could do a good job of that.
Could you? If you can, then you're welcome. But if you can't, no.
Right. So, I came from a pop background. That was my forte. And I had to gingerly inject all the influences I had, and then tell Ainsley Dunbar that he can no longer play drum solos over songs anymore, and it has to be 4/4. And I have to count it out like Mr. Ed.
Did that go over well in the beginning, or did he eventually just have to suck it up and just do it?
I think they were ready for something else.
Okay.
I think they had gotten so much pressure and so much, the pressure of being told that, this could be it if you don't switch the formula.
Right. So thankfully they listened to you and they took what you had to give, and it really...
Yeah, but I had a lot to work with. I mean, it's like having a great palette of colors, and you get to use those colors for the first time, because they were just, each individual is just a stellar musician.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then you guys, obviously, you start writing the music and Wheel in the Sky. Now, Ross Valerie's wife, Diane, she wrote the poem, correct?
Yeah, she wrote a poem. And at that time, people were giving me like lyrics and going like, "Can you do anything with this?" or "Can you do anything with that?" and I'm like, starting to have a little stack of stuff, and and I'm not coming up with anything because there's nothing there that really kind of, gives me any sort of inspiration, let's say.
Right, because it has to hit you, right?
Right. So I felt like, well, I'd better come up with something, or not. I'm not going to be very welcomed here,
Mm-hmm.
So I grabbed. The line was not actually that; it was something else. I can't remember, but it was. I tweaked it a little bit, and then put it, injected into the song, and wrote the lyrics and put it together that way.
And Neil was co-writer as well, correct?
Correct, yes.
Now, you guys wrote it, but it went on the Infinity album, and then Steve Perry sang it. So what happened? What happened there?
What happened there was basically there was an A&R guy in at CBS who had been paying for all of Steve Perry's demos, and he was kind of nurturing them. And he had just made a sample of 4 songs or something like that, and he sent it to Herbie, and he was sort of like, hounding him for a bit, and then sort of came with the offer of, hey, if you take him, we will give you we'll get you a producer, we'll give you more airtime, we'll give you a tour budget. So this guy was championing Steve from the power base, basically.
Okay.
And so it was a business deal that Herbie couldn't refuse,
mm-hmm.
and he took it. And I don't blame him, because I think Herbie's great. I mean, Herbie could sell ice to Eskimos,
So did you kind of know, though? Did you have a feeling this was going on in the background?
No, I didn't know anything was going on in the background. And Steve actually was at one of the gigs on the side of the stage watching me,
Really? So how?
Yeah. They had him as one of the cousins of one of the roadies or something like that.
Oh boy, quote unquote.
Yeah. So, but when it came down, I heard from everybody, they were all pissed off and disappointed and mad at Herbie, but Herbie had the iron glove, let's say, and said, this is what we're going to do, and they went along with it. And I was fortunate to be a part of that and make a very significant change in their music, and I basically was sort of like the architect for that sound with them, and luckily they continued on doing that, and it has become what it has, and I'm talking to you.
But you're still a part of that, which to me is just, I know that in the beginning you said, no, you really don't think about it, but it's so incredible that you can actually look back at that time and say you were a part of this amazing.
Yeah, I mean, when I go to see the guys play, there's 3 generations of people there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's pretty incredible. And when they play my songs, they get great applause, and I love that, and that's really nice.
I know. How could you not love that?
Right. And we got the star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Oh, we're going to talk about that. That is the coolest ever. I can't even.
Yeah.
So now, when you left, though, did you have a feeling, maybe in the back of your mind, that these guys are going to go on and do some pretty great things?
No.
Okay.
I was actually driving with my girlfriend in Westwood, and we had the radio on, and all of a sudden, Wheel in the Sky came on, and I just was like, I just pulled over and listened to it, and I kind of cried.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for me it was like it was like being a writer and finally being recognized, and when I was in the beginning, I had written some songs, and I had a meeting with Chrysalis Records Publishing one time, and I'm sitting there, and the offices at that time were they were like these huge glass cubicles where they had, each publisher had their own room, but it was all glass. So I'm sitting there with this publisher, and he's listening to my stuff, and I turn to the side, and there is George Martin, and he's standing there, and he's listening to my stuff.
Wow.
And after the song, he gave me the thumbs up, and to me, that was the day I said, I'm going to be a songwriter.
And there you go, because then you leave Journey and Perfect Stranger.
But that was before Journey and all that.
Oh, that was before Journey.
Oh yeah, I was only like 19 at that time.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And that's what kind of like, set the big light on me, getting the thumbs up from George Martin. That made my whole life. And I met him several times after that too.
Wow. I mean, you've just had such an incredible and amazing path to where you are today. And then you went on and you did your solo album, Perfect Stranger. That came out in 1979. And Neil was a part of that project as well as Greg Raleigh. So you were still connected with the Journey guys at that point.
Right. Well, I was connected because the song wouldn't have been quite right the way I wanted to have it unless I had them,
Right.
So thank God they helped me out on that. And All For You was the song and that we did together. And that song, I wish I had let them have it, because that song would have been a big song with them, I think.
I love that song. And I was just going to say to you, too, you should totally re-release that song. It's so great.
Yeah, I have to look into the licensing to the Perfect Stranger album. I always get people asking me, how can they get it or whatever.
See? It's got to be a thing.
Yeah, I should do that this year. It should really be put out there.
Just pile it on your plate with all the Sky stuff, and your art. You could just put some more on your plate because it's already full enough.
Yeah, well, it'll be a mess to clean up when I'm all gone. When I'm gone,
but it'll be a pretty mess. It will.
It will. I'll arrange it just right.
There you go. I think you could do a good job too. Now,
I'll give it a try.
Robert, 1984, that comes along, and you go glam, and you join the Vinnie Vincent Invasion. Now, had you already known Vinnie, or was this a new connection for you?
It was a totally new connection from, what's his name, Adam Mitchell, who wrote songs with Paul Stanley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Adam Mitchell. He introduced us. So he met Vinnie, I guess, over at Paul Stanley's, and I guess Vinnie was looking for a singer. So Adam Mitchell gave Vinnie my number, and Vinnie called me up and showed up at my door one day.
And you went glam. I keep saying it, but it's kind of, interesting how you went from rock and then to glam.
Well, I didn't go to glam. It's just that...
glam came to you.
Yeah, glam came to me. It's more like that.
Yeah, because you really didn't look like the other guys.
No, I'm sort of like the brown shoes with the tuxedo and that kind of situation.
But you were still a part of it.
Right. I always say I look like I'm posing with 3 inflatable drag queens.
I kind of like that.
But yeah, Vinny shows up at my door, and he comes in, and he's just dressed in jeans, sneakers, and a T-shirt, and a couple of cassettes, and came to my house, and I made some tea and put the cassette on, and I heard these incredible songs, and I thought, the first thing I thought is, this guy can really write a rock song.
Yeah.
And that's what I was willing to, put down my pen and paper to do it, because it was so wild. and I could sing that. I
Oh, yes, you
prior
could.
to the Journey stuff, I sang a lot of kind of Zeppelin, kind of I guess Robert Plant type tone and all that. And so it's so it was always there. It was just now it came a situation where I could really tap into that and just go for it. Just like Jackson Pollock, just throwing paint on the canvas.
Oh, because you can bring your voice up there, and that was perfect for what Vinny was doing.
Oh yeah, I mean it was. I think if his music, if it wasn't for the lead singer being as radical, it was a good matching tie and handkerchief, I'd say.
At that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you left the Invasion.
I left it.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, now, you have been such a huge, to me, looking, from the outside, a huge supporter of Vinny. And when you saw him at the Kiss Expo in Atlanta last year, you both sang Back on the Streets. That was incredible. Everybody went nuts over that. And to me, it looked like you cried when you saw Vinny again. And you had said that you were just glad he was okay. You were happy to be there. You were happy to reconnect with him. So was it then that you said, you know what, okay, we got to reunite again. We got to do this again. But that kind of blew up. So
right.
What happened there?
Well, it was when I did go up there, I was crying because it was like being next to a ghost.
Yeah, because he disappeared for a long time.
Right. And yet, it was the same person, yet it wasn't the same person.
Right.
It was odd, but there was that magic that kind of cut everything and had such a presence, and everybody was emotionally touched. I mean, I don't know if you were there, but he was telling this story about his life, and it was just like just floating down the river of woe, and then he picks up the guitar and he starts doing these songs, and then I was in the background, and then he started to play Back on the Streets, and I thought, I'm going to go up closer and check it out. So I got closer to where he was performing, to the side, and then all the people that were involved with him on the side there, the stage, just started going, come here, go up there, and I'm going, no, this is his day. Let him have his, let him have his day. And they go, no. They grab me by the elbows and push me up there, and I walked up there, and it was just all improv.
How beautiful is that? Because it didn't look, I mean, you both just sounded great together, felt so emotional on my end.
It was. There wasn't a dry eye in that whole place.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was kind of, and I don't know why, but it happened, it just kind of happened.
So had you tried to stay in touch with him during that whole time he was away, or?
No. He didn't ever try to get a hold of me because he thought that I hated him.
Oh.
And I told him I didn't hate him. I just, didn't like some of the stuff he did. It's like we were when we got together, it was like we were going to build a house together, and then we were going to sell it and split the proceeds, and we were going to be happy and do another project together.
Right.
But he decided that he sold the house from under me.
Because you just kept everything I saw from you about Vinny. It was support. It was just all good stuff. And then when you had backed out of the reunion show, I believe it was this time last year, like, what happened? Because everybody wanted you there. Right.
Yeah. It's just, the person that was handling things was just not the person to jump into a situation like that. A situation like that, when you've got two people like Vinny and I think it needs to be a little bit more thought out, and so that we don't look like idiots.
Right.
And it had all the makings of just going and just stepping in a big piece of shit.
Oh, and it did. It's so.
Yeah, and I knew it was going to be that way. Vinny gets chased by people who are more interested in furthering their career.
Oh. Yeah, it's sad.
Instead of having it kind of a mutual thing,
right?
It's more in their box than his box or any sort of logic. It seems to be.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes a recipe for disaster.
It's kind of good.
I didn't want to be involved in that.
It's really good you saw that though beforehand because it did. I mean, I felt so bad for people that they had.
Oh, absolutely.
Flights.
Oh God, yes.
Hotels. Time out of work.
I know.
The whole thing. It's just.
I know. But it wasn't Vinny, and it wasn't me, and that is really, where it all turned sour.
Well, a really good reunion that you did have was in 2005 when you joined Journey for that star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So when did you find out about it? Was it a phone call? Was it an email? Like, what happened and how did you feel?
I got it. For me, it was really amazing, and it was just something you'd never think of. When I was a kid, I grew up in Los Angeles, and Channel 5 was local news, Los Angeles news, and Channel 5 would always show whoever was getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and so you always saw somebody getting the star,
Right.
So all my life, I'd seen people get the star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on TV, and then all of a sudden you're standing there, and there's the TV stations there, and there's the I can't remember his name. He was the mayor of Hollywood, and he's there, and who I've seen all my life on TV, and I'm standing next to him, and it was just completely surreal.
Really was it? Like you just didn't feel as if it was really happening that day?
Yeah, it's like I can't believe this is really happening until I saw all the news cameras. Then I go, this is really happening.
and what do you do? Do you go out to lunch? I mean, what happens?
Yeah, we
after
had a lunch afterwards where all the Journey fans they put a luncheon together, and we went there, and we got some awards there, some little trophies, and we were all there. It was great, except for Raleigh.
Oh, he wasn't there.
No, he wasn't. I really wanted to see him,
Oh, but you still keep in touch with him, right?
Yeah, I do. I do. I lived with him when I first got with Journey.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Really?
And, yeah, I lived at his house up, and he had a very beautiful home up in Sausalito, and he had a beautiful white piano there, and that's where we wrote Anytime together there.
So was Greg a good roommate?
Greg was married at the time.
Well, but still, you lived at his house.
Yes, he was, except for the time he had me drive his Rolls Royce.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So we're going to rehearsal, and he has this beautiful 1950 something Rolls Royce.
Gorgeous.
I mean, just a classic Rolls Royce. And he goes, we're in San Francisco, and he stops in front of the bank, and he goes, listen, just go drive it around the block. And I'm going like, what? He goes, yeah, just drive it around the block, and I'll be back. I've got to go in the bank. So I get in there, and it's a whole new animal, and it's a stick on the column.
Oh, geez.
And I'm going up this hill that's like a 90-degree angle hill, and I'm getting up closer to the top, and the light turns red, and now I'm stuck at the very top, and now I'm waiting for the green, and I'm so afraid I'm going to roll back and just smash the hell out of somebody and the rolls, and I just gun it as much as I can, and I go around the block. And I get back hoping he's there, and he's not there, and I have to do it again. And I told him, after that, I just said, don't ever, ever let me drive that car again.
So did you ever drive the car again?
No, are you kidding? Nope. I'm being driven.
Good for you. Uber for you. You can Uber in a Rolls.
No Uber back then.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Taxi. So at the Hollywood Walk of Fame, you did see Steve Perry, though. And now, did you guys ever say, hey, why don't we work together? You've worked with the other guys over the years.
No. There's nothing to work with.
There's nothing.
Work on,
Yeah, well.
It's like... I mean, I could have a couple of songs and go, hey, what do you think of these two songs? I'd be interested in singing that. But I never thought of doing that personally. I never either tried to pursue that at all.
Well, how about Neil? He's got Journey Through Time, and Greg is in that, as well as Dean Castronovo. Now, have you ever thought of maybe hopping in on that project?
No, never thought of doing that. I mean, if he wants to, ask me, and I'll definitely consider it.
Okay, that is out in the universe now.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's kind of funny because I go there and the songs are not in the same key as when they were written originally. So, it's like if I were going to go and sing "Wheel in the Sky" with them, I would be not in the key that would be suited for me.
But it would be okay, because then you could just do it how it was meant to be done, and people would love it.
They have everything kind of programmed and all that stuff, for that key that they're playing in. I think they're playing a half step down or a full step down. I don't know, but that's always something. You don't want to walk up and try to sing in front of 90,000 people in a key that's not your key.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that wouldn't be too cool.
You wouldn't want to put on a bad dress, Kiki.
No, I wouldn't. No, listen, I try on at least 10 before I choose the right one, so I get it. Now, Gene Simmons, you worked with him too in 2017. He released his Vault, and he did get a lot of flack on that set, which I think is super cool, because it's very, very expensive. People were kind of, oh my gosh. But you are a part of that insanely incredible release, A Piece of the Rock. That song is in the Vault. And you had said on your social media that what happened was you basically got a call from Gene saying he was going to include that song. So when did that song get recorded, and how did that all come about?
Wow. I had a band with that I had a band with Tony Franklin, me, Jimmy Crespo, a guy named Gary Ferguson, drummer who played with Eddie Money, and then went in and did these recordings. And I called the band Crown of Thorns. And so Gene was working with some band, and he called me up and asked me if I was using the name Crown of Thorns. And I said, no, not doing it. Just go ahead and take it. So he took the name for some band called Crown of Thorns.
Really?
Yeah. Oh. I think there's a bass player with a big like what do they call it? Big mohawk, big blonde mohawk. But anyway, he was in that band, and I met him not too long ago, and he told me that he was in this band called Crown Thorns, and I'm going, wow,
Okay.
So I told him the story about it.
That's
And
funny.
so Gene asked me about it, and then later on, he asked me if I be interested in writing with him. So I would go to his house and write with him, and his son and my son went to the same school.
Small world.
They went to Warner in Brentwood, and in Los Angeles, and I participated in the school that had a lot of movie people at the school. A lot of lighting people in production, people, all kinds of stuff like that. So their Halloween school events were just amazing with great production and everything. So they had like 7 rooms or something like that, and I wrote music for each room. And then Gene was Frankenstein, and Sharon was the Bride of Frankenstein.
That is neat.
And so I did all the spooky music for all the different rooms and all that stuff. And I was writing with Gene during the time of was it called Psycho Circus or Circus Psycho or something? So I started writing with him, and we did a demo of that song, Piece of the Rock, and we wrote some other stuff together. He used to call me the chameleon because
why?
Because I could write all kinds of different genres.
Robert Fleischman, the chameleon. That's going to be your new... See, you should have that as your logo.
Chameleons have a poor diet, I think.
I know, and you're pretty healthy, so forget that then. So did you go to any vault experiences since you were a part of this?
Yeah, I went to the one I was invited to the one in Las Vegas with Paul Stanley.
Cool.
Yeah, it was nice. I met Paul the very first time. He came backstage when Journey and I we played the House of Blues after the ceremony, the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Oh, nice.
Ceremony.
Nice.
So that was the first time I met him, and then I hadn't seen him since then. I was walking by him, and he goes, hey, he went to somebody and said, hey, that's Robert Fleischman of, he wrote Wheel in the Sky. And I'm just like so surprised that he even knew me or, all that. So then later on, we touched base and we talked for the first time, and we talked about art, and I had met his son, and I thought he was a very good kid, and had a nice chat.
Well, because you're both, fantabulous artists. So you had that huge connection as well.
Yeah, we did talk about that a bit.
Steve Augeri, do you still keep in touch with him?
I send hearts and likes to him when I see him post things, but I love him. I think he's a great guy. I always call him the Cary Grant of rock and roll.
That's perfect for Steve.
He's quite the gentleman.
Totally. Now, Robert, on your website, you said that you will have new Sky music next year. You're putting out amazing pieces of art. I love looking at them. And you're still making music. Is there anything left that you want to do that you haven't done yet?
Yeah, I want to do a clothing line.
Really?
Yeah, I want to do a clothing line, and I want to set up a T-shirt flash artwear T-shirts with my art on it.
So 2020, though, that's a great time to kick new things off, and I want a T-shirt. I definitely want a T-shirt.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah. I have to tell you, Robert, I am so glad that I finally got to connect with you and, get your story, because, again, I love watching you on social media. I loved reading about you and everything that you've done. We didn't even touch on half of what you've done. But, again, I appreciate the time you've given us today. People are going to love hearing, what you've been up to and just you're a piece of the story. So I thank you so, so much.
Well, thank you, Kiki. I always watched you and always wondered if you'd ever touch base with me. So I'm glad that you did. It kind of funny tidbit though. Today, somebody sent me something on Facebook telling me that Vinnie and Vincent Invasion, Rolling Stone magazine gave it the number 39 of the best heavy metal albums.
Really?
Yeah, and I was kind of like, wow. At least it's nice to be in the 40s.
Don't we all wish we were in the 40s again? I'll tell you I do.
Yeah, I'll take that for a while more.
Well, I honestly have to tell you that I wanted to interview you for a long time, but I said, you know what? I just didn't feel I was ready. And I felt, because you have such an amazing history. And I know because you sound so humble about everything that you've done, and what you have done has been amazing. So I literally, I'm sitting here going, it's just not time. It's just not time. And I finally said, you know what? It's time. I can talk to you now and kind of know what I'm talking about and not stumble over what I'm saying to you. So
I appreciate you doing your research. You have the chops now, Kiki.